Hello all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. The central U.S. was hit by multiple deadly tornadoes and the damage has been devastating. Florida's governor is taking action to honor his words about sending illegal immigrants to Biden's hometown. It's a good idea to let policymakers taste the consequences of their policies. The years-long Assange extradition case has progressed, and there's a good chance that he will be extradited to the United States to stand trial. And more countries are diplomatically boycotting the Beijing Winter Olympics. The CCP and the IOC are facing more and more dilemmas. Okay, let's get into it. One of the deadliest tornadoes in U.S. history swept across several central states on December 10th. In Illinois, at least 6 Amazon workers were killed when a warehouse roof collapsed during the extreme weather. It is believed that up to 100 employees were inside the building at the time of the collapse. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear said the death toll will likely exceed 100 for his state. West Kentucky suffered the worst of it. Several towns were completely flattened. About 100 people were working at a candle factory in the area when the tornado struck. It is expected that dozens of employees have died at the factory. Beshear declared a state of emergency in the morning of December 11th and asked the White House for federal aid. Joe Biden authorized Homeland Security and Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, to coordinate the disaster relief efforts. According to poweroutage.us, more than 300,000 people were without power in 7 states, including Tennessee, Kentucky, and Arkansas. One of the tornadoes traveled over 250 miles, stretching from Arkansas to Kentucky. It could set a record for the longest tornado in American history. The southern border crisis is still unresolved. Border officials recorded 1.7 million illegal crossings over the past fiscal year, but they all disappeared. Where did they go? The Daily Caller reports that illegals are allowed to fly within the U.S. with no IDs in hand, only papers. Even a notice to appear in a court document is acceptable as an alternate form of identification, so basically they can fly to any state they want. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis proposed $8 million in his new budget to send illegal immigrants out of the Sunshine State. This budget is the Freedom First budget. DeSantis said, if you sent illegal immigrants to Delaware or Martha's Vineyard or some of these places, that border would be secure the next day. Delaware is the home of Joe Biden, and Martha's Vineyard is where Barack Obama owns a mansion. DeSantis is also encouraging more counties to participate in the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Program 287G. Under the program, individuals who are arrested on criminal charges and held in county jails are checked for immigration status. As the Chinese Communist Party is in the spotlight for human rights abuses and the reputation of the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, is slipping, one of the main Olympic sponsors, Allianz, is considering scaling back its promotions. Allianz is the worldwide partner for the Olympics. The Munich-based insurer is paying about 400 million euros to display its logo at 4 winter and summer games until 2028. But in the light of multiple diplomatic boycotts and allegations of human rights abuses in China, Allianz is not happy. The company is considering significantly reducing its advertising activities around Beijing. It's worried about the negative effects of its sponsorship. Other companies sponsoring the Beijing Olympics could also face blowback. Senator Marco Rubio said in a letter on Wednesday, "It is not a stretch to say that Airbnb, Alibaba, Allianz, Atos, Bridgestone, Coca-Cola, Intel, NBC, Omega, Panasonic, Procter & Gamble, Toyota, Samsung, and Visa are now ignoring an ongoing genocide in the blind pursuit of profits." Countries boycotting the Beijing Olympics have only talked about the CCP's persecution of the Uighurs. They have avoided the CCP's worst act of mass genocide, which is the persecution of Falun Gong. Now, finally, some legislators are paying attention to this issue. Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting held a webinar on December 10th, which is the International Human Rights Day. Lawmakers from the US, the UK, and around the world spoke out against live organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners by the CCP. US Representative Scott Perry said, "We must challenge the evil designs of the Chinese Communist Party, which entails highlighting its wanton disregard for basic standards of human decency. In the coming days, Perry will introduce the Falun Gong Protection Act. It specifically targets those who indirectly and directly contribute to organ harvesting in China. Perry said, "Our nation continues to witness increasingly distressing examples of communist China's depravity and see clearly that it has directed a campaign to harvest the organs of Falun Gong practitioners. These are living people having their organs taken from them. Some 1.5 million believers may have lost their lives as a result." Falun Gong is a spiritual discipline based on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. It also consists of a set of 5 meditative exercises. The practice of Falun Gong spread widely in China in the 1990s. The Chinese government estimated that between 70 to 100 million people were practicing Falun Gong by 1999. The CCP deemed the practice's vast popularity as a threat and launched an expansive persecution campaign to eradicate the group. Since July of 1999, Falun Gong practitioners have suffered severe torture and imprisonment, as well as forced organ harvesting. Belgian politician Nick Ponthier said that everyone should pay attention to Falun Gong because its practitioners make up the greatest number of victims in the CCP's crime of live organ harvesting. Philip Hunt, a member of the British House of Lords, said that action must be taken internationally and the world needs to do everything possible to stop this horrific practice. I want to take a moment to thank you all for your support of Front Page. Your donation and your membership subscription help us to keep telling the truth. Every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, please double check to make sure that you are still subscribed. We've heard that many of our viewers don't get notifications of our videos anymore, so please follow us on Telegram, Gab, and Getter for the latest updates. Okay, let's get back into it. While the United States called on its allies to join in boycotting the Beijing Winter Olympics, Russia's Vladimir Putin announced last month that he would attend the Games' opening ceremony. Beijing must have been very happy at the time, but now it looks like it might not be a cause for celebration. After the White House announced a diplomatic boycott of the Winter Olympics, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian accused Washington of hyping a diplomatic boycott without even being invited to the Games. He stressed that Beijing reserves the right to decide who to invite. Taiwanese economist Wu Jialong revealed that Beijing intended to use the spread of Omicron as a reason to cancel the opening ceremony so that there would be no question of invitation and naturally no question of boycott. But Putin, who announced in late November that he would gladly accept Beijing's invitation to attend the Games, is giving the CCP a big headache. Since Putin is coming, the CCP has no choice but to hold the opening ceremony. Then the Western countries' boycott would be justified. Putin is not very friendly to the CCP either. He just visited China's neighbor, India, and signed 28 agreements with the country. In particular, the two countries agreed to increase military cooperation. Russia will sell a significant amount of arms to India. It's obvious who India is buying weapons to defend against. Originally, this arms deal with India should have been done with the United States. Under President Trump, arms sales to India reached $15 billion, whereas it was $0 under Obama. The U.S. and India built a close relationship under Trump, but after Biden got into the White House and resumed the Obama-era policy, U.S.-India relations cooled down again. We'll dig deeper into the relationship between Russia and India on our membership site. If you're interested, please make sure to join us there. The link is in the description below. You may also be wondering why the CCP cares so much about a sporting event. It's more than meets the eye. I want to show you a trailer of a video we published over the weekend. The Chinese Communist Party is taking next year's Beijing Olympics very seriously. With more and more countries diplomatically boycotting the Olympics, the CCP is using every trick in the book to try to diffuse mounting tension. But why would the CCP take a sporting event so seriously? The Olympics is an opportunity for the regime to demonstrate its soft power to the world. It also wants to show off the Chinese athletes' achievements in international sports, hence increasing patriotic sentiment and enhancing the party's image at home. However, these aren't the reasons why the communist regime is so worried about countries boycotting the Olympics. The real reason is that the CCP wants to use the Games to promote its state-backed digital currency known as the digital renminbi or the digital yuan. And There are huge global ambitions behind the move. We will get into it in an exclusive episode on our membership site, frontpageshow.com. Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace surprisingly announced his resignation at the end of his program on Sunday, December 12th. He said, "Finally, a personal note, after 18 years, this is my final Fox News Sunday." After a brief review of his work at Fox, he said, "It's been a great ride." Chris Wallace is the first Fox personality to have moderated a presidential debate in U.S. elections, including the 2016 and 2020 presidential debates. Less than 2 hours later, CNN announced that Wallace would join its new streaming service, CNN Plus, as an anchor. The project is expected to debut in early 2022. One of the most liked comments under this report on Breitbart website is, "And immediately Fox News ratings goes up." On December 10th, the British Court of Appeals overturned a lower court ruling that opened the door for WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to be extradited to the United States. Assange has been held in Belmarsh Prison in London for the past 2.5 years. In January, a British magistrate's court banned Assange's extradition to the United States on the grounds that he suffered from depression and may be at risk of suicide if he is held in a U.S. prison. But U.S. Attorney James Lewis appealed the case, promising that Assange would not be held in a supermax jail if he was extradited. He also said that Assange might eventually be transferred to Australia to serve his sentence. Because Assange is Australian, this will allow him to be closer to home. A High Court judge lifted the ruling on Assange's extradition after considering commitments on the U.S. side. U.S. prosecutors indicted Assange on espionage charges for publishing thousands of classified government documents between 2010 and 2011. The U.S. government wants to extradite him to the United States to stand trial. If he is convicted, he could be sentenced to 175 years in prison. Assange's supporters say that he only exposed material for public interest, which is a free speech issue. In a 2011 interview with the British political magazine called The New Statesman, Assange made it clear that the enemy of WikiLeaks is not the United States, but rather it is Communist China. WikiLeaks and Chinese authorities have been engaged in a constant battle to ensure that information cannot reach Chinese territory. Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett began his visit to the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, on Sunday. This is the first official visit of an Israeli Prime Minister to the country. Bennett's visit comes at a time of rising tensions in the Middle East as various powers struggle to revive the nuclear deal with Iran. Last month, Israel proposed setting up joint defenses with Gulf Arab states to counter Iranian activity. The UAE shares Israelis' concerns, but is also trying to establish better relations with Tehran. Israel considers Iran to be the greatest enemy. In recent weeks, Israel's top defense and intelligence chiefs met with allies in Europe, the United States, and the Middle East to push for a tougher stance against Iran. Israel's diplomatic efforts have been accompanied by repeated warnings that Israel will take military action if diplomacy fails. Last August, President Trump brokered the Abraham Accord with the UAE, Bahrain, and Israel to normalize diplomatic relations with each other. Until then, only 2 Arab countries, Egypt and Jordan, had established peace treaties with Israel. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please don't forget to like and subscribe this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.